Kuttanad is known as the granary of Kerala. Surrounded by paddy fields, backwaters and rivers, Kuttanad is very beautiful in its scenic view. Most of the people in Kuttanad are farmers, and the life of the people there during the turn of the 19th century was in misery due to poverty, contagious diseases and floods. It was during that time that St. Kuriakose Elias Chavara was born in Kainikari village on 10th February 1805. The Chavara family of Kuriakose and Mariam was showered with God's blessing, and Kuriakose was the third child. Even in the midst of all difficulties, the children grew up in the shadow of their loving parents, with real faith in God and a love for others. 8 days after his birth, Kuriakose was baptized in the parish church of Chenangari on the 18th of February 1805. Kuriakose's mother, Mariam, was a great devotee of the Holy Mother of Vechur. Hence, she offered Kuriakose as a Marian servant under Vechur mother for protection at the very young age itself. During those days, the method of teaching children at the home of the teacher or the ashan was very common. Children used to start their formal education from these teachers at their homes. Kuriakose also started his formal education in ashan Kallari at the age of 5 by writing on sand with his finger. Jesus was the best friend of little Kuriakose. It was his mother who taught him the preliminary lessons in prayer. One day, Malpan Thomas Palakal of Pallipuram Seminary instinctively came to the Chavara family. The polite manners of little Kuriakose drew the attention of Malpan. Malpan asked little Kuriakose whether he would like to be a priest, and little Kuriakose replied, "Definitely, father." His parents were sad to send him to the seminary, but they obliged the wish of their son. Kuriakose started living with the vicar of Chenangari church and started to learn the Holy Bible and the basics of the Syriac language. For a year, he stayed in the church, and then, as he realized that it was God's will for him to become a priest, at the age of 11 years, he bid farewell to his family and continued his studies at Pallipuram Seminary. Under the pious, learned, and wise teacher Malpan Thomas, Kuriakose started to memorize the teachings of the church and the reflections of the saints. While in the seminary, the painful news of the death of his beloved mother, father, and brother reached Kuriakose. This made him very sad. After returning to the seminary, Kuriakose was fully engaged in studies and preparations for priesthood. On the 29th of November 1829, Deacon Kuriakose received priesthood from Bishop Marilius Stabalny in Artungal Church. The solemn first Mass was celebrated in his home parish, Chenangari Church. After becoming a priest, Father Chavara served in different churches. His spiritual leadership and animation were appreciated by the people. His sermons touched the hearts of all who heard them. Father Chavara's spiritual guide, Malpan Thomas Palakal, was a special devotee of the Blessed Mother. He desired to make a Darshana Vida, or house of vision, for meditation and devout life in the Blessed Mother's name. In Chambakulam parish, there was another priest called Thomas Porukara. He also wanted to live a devout life in meditation. The three joined together to realize the dream of a religious community which would live in deep spirituality. To make their dream a reality, Malpan Palakal, Malpan Porukara, and Father Chavara Kuriakose Elias met the bishop and asked permission. The bishop was sympathetic to their desire, but he wanted them to remain with the people so that they could teach the people and guide them in their spiritual growth. The bishop granted them permission to start a monastery, which would be helpful both for the fathers and the people. As per the instructions of the bishop, they approached different parish communities for financial assistance to construct the monastery. The people wholeheartedly supported them with their contributions in kind and in cash. After a long search for a suitable location, they found the Mananam hillock as best suited for their purpose. A gentleman called Kurian Tayal offered his land to build the monastery. The fathers also found it suitable and decided to establish the monastery there. The bishop offered them 200 rupees as the first contribution. They invited Bishop Maurelius to lay the foundation stone of the monastery on 11th May 1831. Though the bishop had reached Mananam, due to sudden physical illness, he was not able to grace the occasion, but he insisted that they not postpone the ceremony. Hence, Malpan Thomas Parukara laid the foundation stone, and the construction work was started. On the Feast of Pentecost in 1831, the chapel was blessed and Holy Mass was offered. The work progressed very fast with Father Chavara Kuriakos's enthusiasm, and this became a strong motivation for the laborers. Along with the construction of the monastery, a seminary was also built in 1833. This was the first common seminary for the Syro-Malabar seminarians. During the construction of the monastery, many unusual things happened, which showed the divine power of Father Chavara. With the hard work of several years, Father Chavara's life goal of building the monastery was accomplished. It was dedicated to Saint Joseph. Father Chavara was grateful for having accomplished God's will. On the 16th of January, 1841, Father Thomas Palakal took his last breath, and this led to great pain for Father Chavara. As Father Chavara Kuriakose knew the importance of printing, he desired to establish a printing press. After seeing the government press in Thiruvananthapuram, he decided to make a press of the same model. With the help of an artisan, he made a wooden press and started printing prayer books and other literature in it. It was the first Catholic press in Kerala and the third one in Travancore. Before starting the printing, some ink had to be bought. Father Chavara had no money for that. He just went to the church and prayed. While returning from the church, he saw a man at the door of the church who said, "Here is a humble offering of 500 chakras for the church and your work. In case of any need in future, I am ready to help you." Father Chavara always trusted in the providence of God. Whenever he had any difficulty, he simply placed all his petitions before the good Lord, whom he addressed, "My Father." He always found the helping hand of God through the generosity of many good people. It was another dream of Father Chavara to establish a school for all children, irrespective of caste or creed. In 1846, he started a Sanskrit school at Mananam. Later, when he was the Vicar General of Verapura, he ordered every church to establish a school. This revolutionary reform of Father Chavara played a significant role in the educational development of Kerala. Father Chavara guided the religious community which was established at Mananam. The community, which is known today as the Carmelites of Mary Immaculate, was officially approved by the church in 1855. During the lifetime of Chavara himself, 7 monasteries were established. The members of these monasteries were engaged in pastoral ministry, evangelization, education, social work, and many other things. Father Chavara liked to be with the people, inquiring about their well-being and trying to solve their problems. People had great faith in his leadership, and his decisions were accepted by them as the last word. Indeed, Father Chavara was a man for other people. Father Chavara prepared manuscripts of canonical prayer for priests and for the divine services. He preached effective retreats for lay people for their spiritual enlightenment. He established homes for the poor and the destitute, which he named Upavishala, or charity home. Father Chavara was the founder of the first women's religious community in Kerala. In collaboration with the missionary Father Leopold OCD, He established a convent for the nuns at Cunamavu on 13th February 1866. Father Chavara was a great devotee of the Blessed Sacrament. He spent long hours before the Eucharist Lord in spite of his hectic schedule during the day. His contemporaries saw him in great ecstasy before the Holy Eucharist. People testified of him as a living saint. A poet and a philosopher, Father Chavara wrote poetry and several literary compositions during his lifetime. Poetry, named Soul's Repentance, and A History of the Church of Christ from Birth to Death were part of his works. The hymn that is sung at funerals, called The Laments, is also one of his compositions. As old age crept in, Chavara got rheumatic fever and started losing his eyesight. Though he was bedridden, he continued his prayer, study, and work. In November 1870, Bishop Milano and other missionaries who had returned from Rome after the First Vatican Council visited Father Chavara. It was a heart-touching moment for everyone. As his health condition deteriorated, Father Chavara Kuriakose told his confreres that his time to go to the Heavenly Father had come. On the 3rd of January 1871, he breathed his last, entrusting his soul in the hands of his Heavenly Father. On hearing the news of his death, thousands of people came to pay homage to him. During the funeral oration, Father Mathai Kapil said, "Today, the flag of Malayalam has come down." The mortal remains of Father Chavara were buried in St. Philomena's Church, Cunamavu, on 4th January 1871. Later, on the 24th of May 1889, the mortal remains were transferred to St. Joseph Monastery, Mananam, which is the mother house of CMIs, and reinterred in the monastery chapel. But that divine ray still shines on us. Saint Alphonsa's ailments got healed completely in 1936 after praying to Father Chavara Kuriakose. Several other miracles were also attributed to the intercession of Saint Chavara. Even after his death, his blessings continued to pour out on all those who intercede to him. In 1958, the process for the canonization of Chavara was officially started. On February 8, 1986, Kuriakose Elias Chavara was declared blessed by Pope John Paul II at Kottayam, along with the Blessed Alfonsa. On the 23rd of November 2014, Pope Francis canonized Kuriakose Elias Chavara at the Vatican, along with Saint Euphrasia, who was a member of the CMC congregation founded by Saint Chavara.
A warm good morning to one and all. I am Dr. Lata Joseph, Assistant Professor at St. Joseph's Training College, Manana. Let me welcome all of you to St. Chavara Kuriakose Elias Lecture Series on Education. This year, the theme being St. Chavara, the Untold Stories. This lecture series on education was initiated in the year 2013 as a joint venture by St. Joseph's Training College, Mananam, and St. Joseph College of Teacher Education for Women, Ernakulam, owned by the CMI and the CMC congregations, respectively. This year, the program gains special significance as we observe the Chavara Jubilee year to commemorate the 150th death anniversary of St. Chavara. We are indeed delighted to have you all with us today in this humble venture as we reiterate the life and works of the great visionary and spiritual leader and pay homage before his memory. Let us start the event by seeking the blessings of God Almighty. We have with us today Dr. Sister Alice Joseph, Principal, St. Joseph College of Teacher Education for Women, Ernakulam. Most cordially, dear sister, let me invite you for the welcome address.
Thank you, Lata. Respected Dr. Varghese K. Cherian, Principal, St. Joseph Training College, Mannanam, Reverend Father Martin Malat, CMI, General Counselor of Media and Education, respected Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS, and the key speaker of the day, the invited special dignitaries, and dear participants and organizers of this webinar. The St. Kuriakose alias Chavara lecture series on education, conducted annually, is a joint venture of St. Joseph Training College, Mannanam, and St. Joseph College of Teacher Education for Women, Ernakulam, under the management CMI and CMC respectively. And it is gratifying to say that both these congregations were founded by the same founder, Saint Chavara, whose 150th death anniversary we are commemorating this year. Saint Chavara's life is an edifying saga. Also known as Father of Literacy in Kerala, he dedicated himself wholly to God and worked ardently for the upliftment of his fellow beings. He paved the way for the educational transformation and progress of our state. Though Saint Chavara lived only for a short span of 66 years, his educational contributions laid a strong foundation for a just society in which all human beings were worthy of justice, respect, and dignity. He was a man who took the road less traveled and was guided by the conviction that days in which you have not rendered any good to others will not be reckoned in the book of your life. Saint Chavara had the courage to take initiatives and contribute a lot to the church and to the society because of his strong faith in the providence of God. He had the strong conviction that if he did his part, the Lord would take care of the rest. With this little note, let me move on to my duty of welcoming the dignitaries. Dr. Varghese K. Cherian, Principal, St. Joseph Training College, Mannanam, Member Syndicate and Chairman Board of Studies Education, MG University, has played a key role in materializing this event and hosting this program. Sir, we do appreciate your availability, approachability, and simplicity. Sir will be delivering the presidential address. On behalf of all, we accord a very warm welcome to you, sir. We are honored by the presence of Reverend Dr. Martin Malat, CMI, General Counselor for Education and Media Communication, who has kindly consented to inaugurate the function and deliver the inaugural address. He is an alumni of St. Joseph Training College, Mannanam, a very good orator and a man of vision. We are grateful to you, Father, for being generous of your time, especially when you are shouldering such heavy responsibilities. On behalf of the organizers and all the participants, I extend a most cordial welcome. The credentials Sri C.V. Anand Bose IAS holds are extensive, and he is a great blessing to this August gathering. A lot of ideas as described by the Government of Kerala, a multi-skilled and a very great personality who played a major role in the onward progress of Kerala, our nation, and humanity at large. There are volumes to speak about his achievements and his services, but I would not resort to it due to time constraints. We are privileged to have such a unique and magnanimous personality to deliver the keynote address. And what is noteworthy is that he is a native of Mannanam, the soil on which the noble soul Saint Chavara tread. A very warm welcome to you, sir, on behalf of all. I accord a warm welcome to all the participants, faculty, and students of various institutions. Stay safe, stay healthy, and remain blessed always. Thank you.
Thank you, dear sister, for your warm words of welcome. Dr. Varghese Kicherian, our principal, is the driving force behind all our ventures. Dear sir, with great warmth and joy, let me invite you for the presidential address.
Most respected Reverend Dr. Martin Mallat, CMI, distinguished guest Sri C.V. Anandabose, IAS, Dr. Sister Alice Joseph, Principal, St. Joseph College of Teacher Education, Ernakulam, dear colleagues from both the colleges, St. Joseph Training College, Mannanam, and St. Joseph College of Teacher Education for Women, Ernakulam, and distinguished participants. Actually, this sort of a seminar, it's a St. Chavara lecture series, is a joint effort of two esteemed institutions set up by the St. Chavara. And one is run by the Congregation of Mary Immaculate, CMI, and the other one is CMC Sisters. This year we are commemorating the 150th death anniversary of St. Chavara. Actually, this series shows much enlightened to the works and service of St. Chavara in this regard. I think his dedicated service was in the field of education, social reform activities, and the prayerful services to the mankind. So this sort of a seminar is more apt for such persons like be the molders of the next generation as teachers. So I'm very happy that these times we are more focused on the main aspects of what Chavara did for the Chavara and his fellow people did for the last 170 or 200 years in the educational and social reform scenario of Kerala and India in general. I think the social reform activities of St. Chavara were started prior to Srinarayana Guru, Chattambi Swamigal, and Vaikam Abdul Qadir Maulavi. Actually, nowadays we are more focused on the social reform activities which actually helped in the educational development of Kerala. Education also, St. Chavara was the pioneer and a premier. And most of the established institutions is run by the CMI and CMC congregations. And third one, the prayerful activities given by St. Chavara and his team. With regard to education, he started a Sanskrit school in 1846 at Mannanam, and he brought a warrior from Thrissur as the instructor and teacher. And with the inspiration of starting a Sanskrit school at Mannanam, he gave direction to all the churches that a school should be established in connection with the church. We named it as Pallikuda. Actually, the schools established by St. Chavara was mainly for the downtrodden and the low caste people. At that time, they were not given chance to enter in the mainstream education scenario. And at the same time, they invited girls to be educated. This was the humble beginning. Actually, this will help in the development of social reform activities. This necessitate some other activities also. One such activity is the midday program started by Saint Chavara in his schools. Actually, this sort of an action was later inspired by Sir C.P. Ramaswamy, then the Divan of Travancore, and give a practice and give an order to practice this action to all the government schools under Travancore and the Travancore province. So this was another form of social reform activities. And for the purpose of giving midday meal program, Saint Chavara started the pidiyari, a handful rice practice. And for that purpose, and Saint Chavara and his congregation was established a social reform groups. We call it as Unnimihirichihayade Dharmashala, Dharmasabha. Actually, this is the first charity organization in Kerala churches. And also to transform the teachings of Saint Chavara and the works of Saint Chavara, he started a printing press at Mananam in the same year where the school was established in 1846. Actually, this was the first press founded by a Malayali and the third in Kerala. And from that press, the first Malayalam daily Nasrani Dibiya was started. And apart from that, he also gave importance to many of his writings, many of the works of Saint Chavara, namely the Atmanuthabam, the life of Jesus Christ from birth to the ascension of Saint Mary. Then Marana Vittil Cholluvanulla Pana, it consists of 1,162 volumes of verses. Then the testaments of a loving father, Nallayappante Chavaral. And the martyrdom of Anastasia, Anastasiude Raktasachitvam. And the reflections of meditative notes. And many other works written by Saint Chavara. All these things helped in the development of a social reform activities in Kerala. Actually, this will help the Kerala as a state, as a God's own country, and become the very literate state and the social reformed state in Kerala. Apart from his educational, social, and spiritual activities, he also engaged in agricultural activities. Attached to every monastery, he started some paddy fields and cultivating lands also. He planted a mango tree very near to his room. And later it became very popular as a prior mango tree. And the seeds of this mango was given to all the monasteries and all the houses of Saint Chavara. Actually, in all these respects, Saint Chavara was a social reformer, an educationist, and a man with a spiritual development, and also a pioneer in the field of agricultural development also. Actually, this was the base of Saint Chavara, the beginning of Saint Chavara in education scenario. So this sort of a seminar will help to reflect the work so far done by Saint Chavara and his congregation. I think two eminent persons are with us to deliver such messages to you. One is Reverend Dr. Martin Mallat, the Counselor for Education of the CMI congregation. And another one is Dr. Anand Bose IAS. He is living very near to our college and the Mandana Monastery also. So I'm very happy and wish all the success to this program with the sincere efforts of St. Joseph College of Teacher Education Ernakulam to join this with this sort of a Saint Chavara lecture series. With these words, let me stop my presidential address. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for that detailed and informative talk. We have with us today Reverend Dr. Martin Mallat, CMI, who is the General Counselor for Education and Media Communication, to inaugurate the event. Dear Father, most respectfully, let me invite you for the inaugural address.
Thank you, Lata Joseph. Dr. Varghese Kecherian, Principal of St. Joseph Training College, Mananam, and the President of today's function. Dr. C.V. Anandabose, IAS, delivers the keynote address today. Dr. Sister Alice Joseph, Principal of St. Joseph College of Teacher Education for Women, Nakulam. Respected fathers, respected teachers, and all the participants. Good morning to all of you. Indeed, I am very happy to be here and I feel honored because I'm an alumnus of St. Joseph Training College, Mananam, and I'm sitting along with my professor, Dr. Varghese Kecherian, and one of my favorite teachers. With nostalgic feelings of 2001 to batch, I sit here and address all of you. And we have got Dr. C.V. Anandabose, IAS, to deliver the keynote address. Happy to see him here because last year when he visited Bangalore, Christ University and Dharmaram Vidyakshetram, I had a chance to listen to his knowledge about and experience of St. Chavara and Mananam, the right person to deliver the keynote address. And the theme, the topic for St. Chavara Kuriakos Elias lecture series on education this year is also a beautiful one. St. Chavara, the untold stories. Very beautiful topic. Because even after 150 years of his death, still the story remains untold fully. The more we explore, the more we get to know of St. Chavara. The more we get to know of him, the more we respect him. I know there are many people in Kerala itself who do not so much respect him. Sometimes I feel saddened by some group of people who try to belittle him, his contributions to the educational scenario, social reformation of 19th century Kerala. Maybe because of their ignorance, maybe because of misunderstanding. The more we explore, the more we get to know of him. The more we get to know of him, the more we respect him. I say this from my own experience because though I belong to the CMI congregation, 1983 I joined the Aspirants House, a minor seminary, and 1997 I got ordained. I feel ashamed to say that I did not know much about the Saint Chavara, our founder, until I reached Mananam in 2001 to study in St. Joseph Training College. And I was staying in Mananam Monastery. During that year, when I was staying in Mananam Monastery, and I had the chance to visit his tomb, holy tomb, every day. And I could see the devotion shown by people, the crowd of people coming there on every Saturday. That initiated the search for knowing St. Chavara in my life. I started reading about him after that. So from my own experience, I say that the more we explore, the more we come to know of him. The more we come to know of him, the more we respect him. But for this, we need a sense of history. Sometimes we lack that. The sense of history we lack. Only if we know the history, we can understand the present and we can plan for the future. But many a time, we fail in understanding history. India has got a vivid history, very ancient history, but chronicled history may be lacking. And here also we come to know of the efforts of St. Chavara. He had the sense of history. He started writing chronicles, maybe first time in Kerala. Whatever happened in his lifetime with regard to the establishment of Manana Monastery and all the activities till his death, he started writing. Clear history is available. But somehow we lack that sense after that. Immediately after his death in 1871, a short biography of him was circulated. But nothing more happened later. That was done by Father Leopold, the missionary from Italy, who was the confessor of St. Chavara. He collected materials from different sources, from different monasteries founded by St. Chavara, and he published a short history. But unfortunately, in 1873 itself, he had to go back to his native country, and it remained there. After 50 years of his death, 1921, a short history was reprinted, but that was only a short history. In 1936, due to public demand, a short history was again published, but that was not a comprehensive history, biography of St. Chavara. Only in 1939, 68 years after his death, a comprehensive, somewhat comprehensive biography of St. Chavara was written and published, written by Father Valerian Plathod and authorized by General Synaxis of the same congregation. That's why I say we lack the sense of history. We fail to chronicle history as St. Chavara initiated. Since then, many historical descriptions, books, biographies were published. It's true. But still more to explore the personality and contributions of St. Chavara. We say that he initiated an educational revolution in Kerala, 19th century. As I said, there are some people, some groups of people who belittle him, saying that the order to start the schools attached to every church was not of him, it was of the Archbishop. But anyway, it's a fact that when he was the Vicar General of the Archdiocese, his order was published. Forget about that. Forget about that order. That happened in 1860. But in 1846, after 15 years of establishing Manana Monastery, he started the first school. And he started the Sanskrit school purposefully. Whatever he did at purpose. Purposefully, he started the Sanskrit school, not English school, not the vernacular school. He started Sanskrit school because he had got a purpose behind it. Because for him, education was not just for acquiring knowledge. This is the difference between Chavara and all of us. For him, education was not just for acquiring knowledge. Education ultimately for St. Chavara was for social transformation, for social change. That was the purpose for establishing the first school in 1846 by St. Chavara, to initiate social change. The society has to change. In 19th century Kerala, we know what was the condition. The society was as described by Vivekananda as hell. Inequality was there in the society. In every sphere of society, there was inequality. caste differences, class differences, all kinds of infights everywhere. He wanted to initiate a social change, a social transformation, and he understood only through education, social reformation, social change can affect in the society. He established the Sanskrit school. He brought in all castes of people, socially and economically backward and vulnerable communities. He brought people, children from those communities and gave education. To sustain them in the education, he started the midday meal scheme. See the logical sequence. Those who acquire knowledge from that school and other schools he established, he understood it has to be sustained. They have to read, they have to continue the education. They should read books. For that, books are needed, for that press is needed. Books are to be published, printed books, printing press is needed. Publishing house is needed. So the logical sequence of what St. Chavara did. And the social transformation was effected. Dr. Varghese Kacharian said about the other social reformers of 19th century. Sri Narayana Guru, he was born in 1855 only. Chattambi Swamigal, he was born in 1853 only. Vakam Abdul Qadir Maulvi was born in 1873 only, after the death of St. Chavara. Ayyankali was born in 1863 only. But St. Chavara started this work of social reformation through education in 1846. But still untold stories about the contributions of St. Chavara for the Kerala society, Indian society. These untold stories, his life has to be explored more. There's one question I just want to ask all the participants, especially the students of these two training colleges, St. Joseph Training College, Marnanam, and St. Joseph Training College for Women, Ernakulam. A big question I just want to ask all the participants, especially the students. Does our education system today pave way for social transformation? As a teacher trainees, this has to go deep into our head. The education we impart in our education institutions should pave way for social change in the society. Otherwise, we defeat the very purpose of establishing education institutions. I wish all the best to the organizers of this lecture series on St. Chavara, and I formally inaugurate this lecture series today. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Father, for that touching description of the need to explore the life and works of St. Chavara. I sincerely hope and wish that this event will be a small step forward in this direction. Now it's time for a special song, the Chavara song, sung by the students of St. Joseph College of Teacher Education for Women at Ernakulam. Another specialty of the song is that the lyrics of the song was written by Sister Soya Maria CMC, Assistant Professor of the college. So let's relax a while and listen to the song.
അനുഗ്രഹ പുതിയൊരു ലോകം പണിതു. പുണ്യപിതാവേ വിശുദ്ധ വഴി അനുപദം ഞങ്ങളും ഗമിച്ചിടട്ടെ. ദർശനസിദ്ധിയിൽ കർമ്മ വഴികളിൽ നവമാതൃക ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് പൊൻവെളിച്ചം. ആത്മീയതയുടെ ഇരുളകറ്റി ജ്ഞാനവെളിച്ചം പകർന്നു. വേർതിരിവിന്റെ മതിലുകളിൽ ഭിന്നത നീക്കി ഇവിടെ നവയുഗ സൃഷ്ടി നടത്തി. വിശുദ്ധ വിത്തുകൾ പാകി വിശുദ്ധ പാതയിൽ വിളങ്ങി നിൽക്കും തിരുസഭതൻ പ്രിയപുത്ര വിശുദ്ധ ചാവറനാഥ. വിനീതരാകും നിൻ സുതരിവരിൽ ചൊരിയും അനുഗ്രഹവർഷം. വിനീതരാകും നിൻ സുതരിവരിൽ ചൊരിയും അനുഗ്രഹവർഷം. വിശുദ്ധ ചാവറനാഥ. പുണ്യപിതാവേ വിശുദ്ധ വഴിയേ അനുപദം ഞങ്ങളും ഗമിച്ചിടട്ടെ. ദർശനസിദ്ധിയിൽ കർമ്മ വഴികളിൽ നവമാതൃക ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് പൊൻവെളിച്ചം. പുണ്യപിതാവേ വിശുദ്ധ വഴിയേ അനുപദം ഞങ്ങളും ഗമിച്ചിടട്ടെ. ദർശനസിദ്ധിയിൽ കർമ്മ വഴികളിൽ നവമാതൃക ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് പൊൻവെളിച്ചം.
Thank you, dear students and dear Sister Soya, for that meaningful and melodious song. Now let me invite Dr. Sister Josephine Joseph, IQAC Coordinator of St. Joseph College of Teacher Education for Women, Ernakulam, to introduce the guest and invite him for the lecture.
Thank you. A very warm good morning to one and all. Since we are all eagerly waiting to listen to the most eloquent speaker, I would rather hurry up with my duty of welcoming Sri C.V. Anand Bose IAS, the key speaker of the day, for delivering his keynote address. A task that is too easy and at the same time difficult. For when the person to be introduced has many qualities and achievements to his credit. When I Googled through the net to know more about Sri C.V. Anand Bose, I got 73,000 results in just 47 seconds. Now, you might have got the meaning of the paradox, too easy yet difficult. To introduce Sri Anand C.V. Bose, IAS would therefore require time more than what we have scheduled for this webinar. So my humble request to all the participants is that please Google through and find out more you want to know about this great personality who has done so many laudable deeds that has made him a proud son of India. I know I won't be doing justice to my task if I would not briefly introduce Sri C.V. Anand Bose, and again I repeat, what I would say about this wonderful man of ideas would be just the tip of the huge iceberg. And here I go. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS, Principal Advisor to the Government of India, DBL Heritage Project, eminent civil servant, management guru, housing expert, innovator, writer, and orator, retired from service at the rank of Chief Secretary and Secretary to the Government of India. He has worked as the University Vice Chancellor, Additional Chief Secretary, and District Collector. He is Chairman of the Habitat Aliens Consultative Status with the Union. Dr. Bose is the recipient of the prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru Fellowship. He is also the first ever fellow of the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Missouri, which trains the top civil servants of the nation. Sri Anand Bose has worked as Secretary to Chief Minister of Kerala and Principal Secretary in various ministries such as Education, Forest and Environment, Labour, General Administration, and Revenue Board. A prolific writer and columnist, he has published about 40 books in English, Malayalam, and Hindi, including novels, short stories, poems, and essays. Some of his books have become bestsellers too. Dr. Bose has been a recipient of 29 international and national awards for his outstanding contributions in different fields. In recognition of his pioneering efforts in the field of housing, United Nations has selected his initiatives as global best practice 4 times. Government of India awarded him the National Habitat Award. He has won more than 100 prizes, including 15 gold medals during his university days. He was the best speaker of the Kerala University for 3 consecutive years and topped in the debates in the IAS Training Academy, Missouri. Dr. Anand Bose was chairman of the working group which prepared the development agenda for the Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi. His concept of affordable housing for all Indians was adopted by the Prime Minister for implementation throughout the country. Described by Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi as man of ideas, mentioned by Dr. Manmohan Singh as inspired civil servant, applauded by the Kerala government as Lord of Ideas, Dr. Bose was hailed by Union Minister Sri Alphonse Kannanthanam as the most outstanding civil servant India has ever seen. Sir, we are truly blessed to have you in our midst to hear from you about Saint Chavara. May I now request respected sir to take over the screen and wish you all a fruitful time ahead. I remain. Thank you.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you, sir.
Most respected Principal Varghese Cherian, President of this meeting, Sister Alice Joseph, the Reverend Father Martin Malath, Reverend Fathers, Reverend Sisters, my dear teacher friends, I am a humble devotee of Saint Chavara, and that is the only credential which I have, which makes me fit in with this distinguished gathering. As it has been stated, I belong to Manan and therefore had the unique opportunity or fortune of breathing the same air which the saint breathed, trekking the same path which the saint treaded. That is a unique experience. In fact, all of us in Manan really feel proud to say that we have received the signature of the saint on our humble beings. I am one who delights in that, and I am one who believes that is the greatest security which I have in my life. That gives us pardon of the pride that we are in the hands of St. Chavara. And when we say this, there is a feeling of conviction in this. There was, from Kaipara, which is nearby, to come to Mananam in those days, there was no bridge. Only there was a wooden bridge, which will be slippery during rain. One mother would escort her daughter, 5-year-old daughter, who is to come to St. Joseph's LP school. The mother will take her up to the bridge, and once the child ascends the bridge, the mom would say, "Please hold it tight onto my fingers." Then the 5-year-old child said, "No, you should hold my hands. Whether I hold your hand or you hold my hands, both are the same," the mother asked. In her innocence, the young child said, "No, if I hold your hands, I may look here and there. I may fall down. But if Amma holds my hands, you will never leave it." That is the confidence. That is a trust. And similar is a trust which we in Mananam have in the protection of St. Chavara. We know very well, wherever we are, anywhere in the world, St. Chavara will be there to hold our hands and to take care of us. That is a confidence which has nurtured us. Therefore, for me, to speak about St. Chavara, think about St. Chavara, is like felt in the blood and felt along the heart. I owe it to St. Chavara for the little achievements which I have in my humble life. Now, what is my role here? In fact, when Sister Soya Maria, she's a very devoted, she's a devoted person, I know, who considers St. Chavara as her mentor. She has been in touch with me, and this topic, St. Chavara, the untold story, was also suggested by me as requested by her. Why the untold story? We all know, heard melodies are sweet, heard are sweeter. There are certain unheard stories about the greatness of St. Chavara from a time when he was not a saint. At that time, he was only a struggling young priest trying to set up a church in Manan. And there was a historian in my house. When St. Chavara came to Manan for the first time, he established friendship with Mr. Icharachar. Icharachar happened to be our great-grandfather. In modern language, Icharachar means Iswaran Nair. St. Chavara established friendship with him and also with the Husaina Rautar of Etuman. And from them, a lot of incidents, a lot of episodes, a lot of stories which give insight into the character and the vision of St. Chavara has been passed down from generation to generation till it reached people like me and also my children. My grandmother, she had seen Father Chavara, not St. Chavara at that time. She had the opportunity to feed Father Chavara because when he comes from Adirampura, she has to walk from Adirampura. There was no bus at that time. And the car was unheard of. He walks to Mananam, takes rest in the Chittayam family, that's my house. There, he would like to have very close conversation with his friend. Icharachar was hardly 2-3 years senior to Father Chavara. Very intimate conversation between the two friends. From that, many untold stories have emerged, which our grandmother used to tell us. And what are the stories that we heard? Well, the first story is that St. Chavara became a saint during his lifetime. That may be something which calls for an explanation. St. Chavara did not want to set up the church in Manan. He wanted the church to be set up in the beautiful hillock of Pullerikonna, which is in Kumaranallur nearby. Every effort was taken by the young father to collect funds and collect men, materials, and money to implement the dream project of his, that is, a church and the dedication of Jesus in Pullerikuna, the beautiful hillock in Kumaranellu. All sanctions were obtained. The Tahsildar of Etumanur gave the final clearance from the government, and people were all very, very enthusiastic about the new church which is going to come up in Pullerikuna. But then some motivated people in the locality decided this church shall not come there. And the reason? The reason, they said, they have understood that Kumaranellu Karthiyayani, the goddess nearby, does not appreciate another religious institution, place of worship coming there. How did they gain the mind of the goddess? Nobody knows. But they said, yes, we will not allow this church to come here. Then it was like tooth for a tooth or nail for a nail. Passion went high everywhere. And a lot of pressures were put on the young priest. Go ahead. At whatever cost, we will build a church. There was also some people who came to fish in troubled waters. People who belonged to another religion, who wanted to settle scores with those who oppose the church. They also joined the Lord. It was as if any clash can take place anytime. Everybody put pressures on the young priest. Don't buckle. Don't budge. We will go ahead. Come what may. We will build the church. Father Chavara kept his own counsel. He would have prayed to God, echoing Jesus on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And blessed by Jesus Christ, with the touch of the signature of the Holy Spirit, the young priest, Father Chavara, took a momentous decision. He said, the church shall not be there in Pullerikuna. Everyone was shocked, not Father Chavara, because he knew what the Bible teaches. Without him who built the house, they labor in vain who build it. He was also prompted by the Bible. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. That is the moment when the saint was born. No one is born a saint, but there is a moment when a saint is born within you. I think that is a moment when Father Chavara decided in the will of God that I will not allow a church to become an epicenter for communal clashes. That is a great human being that Saint Chavara was. That is a moment when the saint was born in Father Chavara. The rest is all procedural. For the canonization took place decades, we know. These are procedural matters. That was a moment, as per my grandmother's account, Father Chavara became a saint. There are so many instances where when my grandmother used to speak extolling the virtues of the young priest, we thought it may be just an adulation by a young girl to a spiritual leader. We never used to believe it, take it in the face value. And she said something which in retrospect I feel, and I've written about it. I am now writing a book on Father Chavara in English. It is almost over. That contains many of these untold stories. My grandmother, she always used to say that Father Chavara was a divine being. And her reason for that, she said, every day, every evening, after the work of the church, construction of the church, Father Chavara would come home and sit with his friend Icharachar under a mango tree. Nearby, there is what is called a Sarpa cow. You know, it is believed that the serpent gods are all there. One day, when Father Chavara was in dialogue with Icharachar, you know, there was a special chair which was given to Father Chavara when he comes there. A chair with a high back and which is also embedded with a brass. Now, even before Father Chavara became a saint, in our house, that chair was called Chavara chair. And as the irony of fate would have it, I happened to be the first person to occupy the Chavara chair in the Mahatma Gandhi University. Again, a blessing of Father Chavara. As the conversation was going on between the duo, according to my grandmother, a serpent came hissing fiercely from the serpent cow. And according to her, Teacher Chavara was flabbergasted. Father Chavara knelt down and raised his hands to God. And according to my grandmother, the serpent was disappeared or vanished into thin air. When she narrates it, we thought these are all the words of infatuation which she had for a divine young priest. But now, in retrospect, we feel that in the lives of great men and the lives of saints, there are many instances of miracles, which is a sign which God has sent. This I would see as a sign, a prophetic foreboding of the impending saint within the young priest. There are also other tales which are there in my house. You know, there is the practice of saying grace before meat, which is basically a Christian tradition. In our family, our grandmother used to insist that every evening before sunset, all children should wash their hands, wash their feet, and pray to God. Kirtanas or Ramayana has to be read. And then we go for dinner. But when Father Chavara used to be a guest there once in a while, before every meal, he will pray for some time. That is grace before meat. From that practice, my Orthodox grandmother also used to insist that it is not enough that we pray before the meal. We have to pray just immediately before we start eating. That trait came from Father Chavara. And recently, maybe 2-3 years back, when I happened to be in the CMI house in New York, there are 25 of our great priests were there. And when I also started praying grace before the meat, some of them asked me, how came this practice came? This is how that practice came. And I am indebted to Father Chavara for one thing. My mother was the first woman to learn English from that tiny little village. You know why? Whenever Father Chavara sits for his dinner, he will always insist on the need for educating the female. In fact, now we say, if you educate a man, you educate an individual. If you educate a woman, you educate a family, nay, a whole society. That was a far-sighted thinking, which prompted Father Chavara to tell my grandmother and great-grandfather the need to educate children. In fact, my mother had to trek for kilometers, in those days miles, to Adirambura because there was English taught only there. In Villuni, I think the school had not come. Now it is there. But, and learning English. In fact, my grandmother had 9th class education. In those days, a girl needs study only up to 7th. Anything above that is unnecessary. In Telugu, there is a saying, raising a girl child is like watering the plant in someone else's garden. That was the belief at that time. No need to educate the women. But at that time, my Orthodox granny, she decided to send my mother for English education. You know what was the points which went against girls learning English? The Orthodox elders said, you know, she will start reading novels. And reading novel by a woman, that is the end of the world at that time. That was the time, prompted by the Saint Chavara's words, my mother could learn English, and we know how much it means for us. There are so many such untold stories which are circulating in our house. Now, we have decided that oral history is also history. Oral history is fact handed down from generation to generation. Oral history is not fiction. Oral history certainly is not fictitious. Therefore, the authenticity of the oral history which we have decided to codify. And that task has been taken by my brother, Professor Dr. Mohan Bose, with the help of course, Chavara Culture Center, Father Roby and others. Yes, there are so many untold stories. Many things have been told here by our respected president, the principal. You know, as an educationist, yes, Father Martin also touched upon that. I had the rare privilege, again the blessings of Father Chavara. Once I got a call from the Prime Minister's office. He is coming to Kerala. What are the points which should be included in his speech? This the Prime Minister's office always does. They get the points from one or two persons and then they draft the speech for the PM. That is a time when it came to my mind. You know, as I said, as Renaissance heroes, Renaissance leaders of Kerala, we hear about Chattambi Swami, Srinarayana Guru, Ayyangali, Mannat Padmanabhan, V.T. Patadripad, Vakam, Abdul Maulavi. Yes, they are all Renaissance leaders. But Father Chavara came before them. He started the education revolution with his proverbial statement, yes, which he said, a school for a church. Not only that, you know, Father Chavara's trait, as we heard from our grandmother, was he was firm beneath his gentleness and gentle beneath his firmness. Once he takes a decision, there is no going back. There is no looking back. When he decided a school for a church, he also insisted the church which does not set up a school will not be given permission for service. That is a great administrator that he was. And he is a forerunner of the Renaissance movement in Kerala. He is on a par with Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Isar Chandra Vidyasagar, Mahadeva Govinda Ranade, and before them, of course, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Vivekananda. I would rate him on a par with the Sarambur missionaries. You know, the Sarambur missionaries, there was a time when the British India did not allow the missionaries to land in India because the English East India Company thought the spiritual sway which the missionaries will be able to have on the people may go against the political overlordship. Therefore, they banned the entry of missionaries in India. Three pioneers, the Anglican Church, they landed in Sarambur. Why Sarambur? Sarambur at that time was not a British territory. Sarambur was a Danish territory. From there, the missionaries also started the process of Renaissance. That is recorded in history. That is appreciated in history. But the contributions made by Father Chavara has not been appreciated. There is there, the like an anvil ding. It struck me when the Prime Minister comes to India, comes to Kerala, he should highlight the leading role, the pioneering role played by Saint Chavara in the Renaissance of society. And he declared it. He declared that Saint Chavara Kuriakos Elias, at times people have difficulties in pronouncing Chavara Kuriakos Elias, especially those from the north. But I listened to his speech. He said, Saint Chavara Kuriakos Elias, along with Chattambi Swamigal and Srinarayana Gurudevan and others, were the leaders of Renaissance. See, I got another opportunity, again by the blessings of Saint Chavara. At the United Nations, one important meeting on SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. You know, Sustainable Development Goals never mentioned anything about Saint Chavara. But as I was halfway through my speech, it struck me. I said sustainability, economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, political sustainability is possible only if there is cultural sustainability. Then I said, there is this young priest in an unknown corner of the world, in a tiny place called Mananam, who set up schools and paved the way for cultural sustainability. And that is there on the records of the United Nations. And a third instance where I had the blessings of Father Chavara, Saint Chavara now, of course. In our house, it is always Father Chavara because we love him like a father. When we say a saint, we know a saint is somewhere far, far away. But for us, this saint is near us. Therefore, for us, it is Father, always Father. Father Chavara, I appeared for the IAS examination. At that time, I was an officer in the State Bank of India. Before the IAS examination comes, the State Bank probationary officer's examination, I wrote it, I got it. And very lucrative job. But at one stage, I thought, no, I should switch over and get into IAS. I came. My brother, again, a product of St. Ephraim's School. We are all products of St. Ephraim's Schools. We are all products, all of us, 8 brothers and sisters. We take pride in saying that we are all products of the institutions set up by St. Chavara. Even now, even when post-graduation was there, SB College. After that, I was in KE College. I take pride in that. Now, when I went for the IAS examination, one examination is in Center A. Next day's examination is in Center B. I took it from Chennai. I was not familiar with the places in Chennai. I wrote the first paper in one place. Second day also, it was somewhere in Mount Road. I thought it must be the same place. I went to the same place. There is no sign of any examination there. And I checked and found out that the examination was around 8 kilometers away in a place called Egmore. How will I reach there? I started getting into the bus, but no bus stops. I didn't have money to take a cab. Somebody came and stopped the cab. A certain elderly lady. He said, "You would like to be dropped somewhere?" I said, "Ma'am, this is my problem. Don't worry, I'll drop you there." And when I went there, if you enter the examination hall half an hour late, you will not be admitted. I was half an hour late. That invigilator, he looked at me. In a flicker of a second, I could see fleeting thoughts, contradictory thoughts going on in his mind. Like Hamlet, to be or not to be, whether to admit me or not. I just prayed to Chavara Kuriyakas. The invigilator looked at me and said, "Get in and write." But for this blessed moment, I would not have been here to talk to you as the principal advisor of the government of India. Yes, we have many untold stories to narrate. And then, see, there are occasions when you feel a person is put to test when there is an adversity. Shakespeare said, "Sweet are the uses of adversity." How adversity was turned into an opportunity by St. Chavara is a lesson which is there for the Harvard Business School to teach the business management experts. You know, suddenly, like a bolt from the blue, came a schism within the church. The churches were built up, which were built up by the efforts of people like Father Chavara. Suddenly, there came Bishop Rokos from Syria. He landed up and said, "I am the episcopal authority for all the churches here." Father Chavara could not accept it. But most people went after Rokos. The ruckus created by Rokos at that time. Church after church went with him. And the most important layman in those days was Edubuna Taragan, rich and socially powerful and highly religious minded. He also joined Rokos. Father Chavara was left high and dry. He knew very well, because as you know, these saintly persons do have the signature of the Holy Spirit in them. He knew what Rokos is saying is not correct. He tried his level best to have the churches with him, but he was losing. That is a time when he told his bosom friend, Icharachar, about this. Icharachar is always taught on the teachings of the Gita. And he said, "No, don't be disheartened. Karmani vadhikaraste. Ma bhaleshu gadajana. Keep on doing your duty. Don't care for the result. You will win." Then the strategy was, there are two good strategies it appears now. The strategy was built up. And the Icharachar, he said to her, told his friend, Father Chavara, "Why not convince Taragan?" Father Chavara said, "No. He has played the role of Judas. No, I cannot talk to him." But Icharachar consoled him, saying that, "You see, God has a different way. Maybe this is God's way. He quoting the Gita, he said, Lord Krishna knew that the Kauravas will not mend their ways, but still he tried to amicably settle the dispute. Therefore, 2 priests were sent to Taragan, and by the grace of God, Taragan was strongly in favor of Rokos, but he did not withdraw from his support, but he played neutral. And then it was the day of Father Chavara. To cut a long story short, Father Chavara got the great news from the Pope, Pius the Ninth, if I'm not wrong, that the Pope Vatican had never authorized Rokos to come as a bishop. Rokos was sent only to take stock of the situation of the church here. Now, Father Chavara won because God was with him. Father Chavara won, all the churches came back, and in between the Archbishop decided, why not have a new bishop? And the obvious choice was Father Chavara. And Father Chavara, he was not after position. He said, no, I do not want to be bishop. And that is how the post of Vicar General was created. See, he went through the vicissitudes of time. At every moment, he knew, I am with God. When God is with me, I cannot fail. Like Abraham Lincoln, who said, I cannot fail with him. Without him, I cannot succeed. If you have faith unto a mustard seed, you can move mountains. That was a faith which sustained Father Chavara throughout his career. And what is Father Chavara's position here in the modern world? You know, I would rate Father Chavara as a world citizen who was responsible for the emancipation of the world through education. This is not a mere exaggeration by a devotee of Father Chavara from the village of Mananam. I can cite the instance, Vladimir Lenin. It is in 1919 that Vladimir Lenin said universal compulsory education. Like what Father Chavara did decades before in Kerala. Vladimir Lenin said in 1919, he said, let me teach the children for 4 years. The seeds which I sow can never be uprooted. This is 1919. And then the revolutionary Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro came through the barrel of a gun. Baptista was overthrown through violence. But when he came, Fidel Castro came to power and became the supreme power in Cuba. He also borrowed from Father Chavara. He gave a clarion call, which is reminiscent of a church, a school for a church. Fidel Castro said, Yo si puedo. Yo si puedo in Spanish means, yes, you can. He educated his people. He educated his people. The Cuban model of adult literacy has become a global model now. 30 countries adopted it. 30 countries which opposed Castro tooth and nail adopted it. UNESCO adopted it. Now you see, Father Chavara's experiments were unnoticed. Now, to cut the long story short again, Latin America. The Latin American educational revolution is well known. Paulo Freire, pedagogy of the oppressed. He created a situation, an environment where the people could be emancipated through education. All this happened recently. Now, this is all what Father Chavara did from that tiny little village called Mananam. Yes, there was a question once, can anything good come out of Nazareth, right? There was a question, can anything good come out of Mananam? Let Father Chavara's deeds answer that. If the Prime Minister of India could hail Father Chavara as a leader of Renaissance, if the United Nations have recorded that cultural sustainability was given to the world by this unknown priest in an unknown place called Mananam, I think we are only going to see what the totality of Saint Chavara. I do not want to take more of your time. Yes, he was a writer, which Father Mr. Dr. Principal has already stated here. For want of time, I'm not going into that. But you go through the every verse of Chavara. That is a quintessence of the secrets of successful life. Nowhere in world literature you will see such a simplistic assertion of the most noble thoughts which keeps humanity going. Again, I think I once had a 1 hour discourse on that. This is not a time for that. What did Father Chavara do? There is a young priest at that time, young, of the CMI, my close friend and mentor, Father Felix. Father Felix runs the Central Institute of Mental Retardation. Once he told me, in Seattle, the Olympics is going on. Not the regular Olympics, but the Olympics are special Olympics. Olympics for the mentally retarded and the physically challenged. 100 meters race is about to begin. There are 9 mentally retarded children on the track. On your mark, get set, go. All the 9 children ran forward. On the way, one child fell on the track. In an instant, all the 8 children who ran forward stopped, turned back, ran back, held the hands of the fallen child. All the 9 held hands together. They ran forward together. They finished together. They won together. This is the message which Father Chavara gives the whole world. You may run the race, you may go ahead, but if there is one person who has fallen on the wayside, do you have the mind to come back, hold its hands, and run together? That is why orphanages, noon meals, a whole lot of new innovations were done by this great Son of God. Therefore, I can see before my eyes Father Chavara in the presence of God, in the presence of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We have our own saint. He is a saint who can be a next door neighbor. He is a saint, not of the church. He is a saint of humanity. He is a universal saint. He is an eternal saint. And I consider it as my great gift given by him to be here and give this humble family testimonial. Let us all be saved by Saint Chavara, whose benign grace will always be with all of us who think about him, who utter his name. God bless all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear sir, for that very personal, emotive, and strong rendering regarding the details of the life of Saint Chavara. It was really interesting to listen to your family stories and memories regarding the great saint. And we would all eagerly await the book that you're going to write about Saint Chavara. Thank you, sir, for being with us today. Now, before we come to the end of the event, let me inform all the participants that the feedback link is being provided in the chat box. Please do fill it up clearly and correctly for you to get these certificates. And also one more thing, since we are able to issue only 100 certificates per day, probably it would take 2 days' time for all of you to get these certificates. Please bear the delay in receiving your certificates. Now I invite Dr. Shaiju Francis, coordinator of this lecture, to propose the vote of thanks.
ഈ പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പരയുടെ അധ്യക്ഷ സ്ഥാനം അലങ്കരിക്കുന്ന കോളേജിന്റെ പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽ ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട വർഗീസ, ഈ പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പരയിൽ നിന്ന് നമുക്ക് ഉദ്ഘാടനം ചെയ്ത് സംസാരിച്ച റവറൻഡ് ഡോക്ടർ മാർട്ടിൻ മല്ലത്ത് CMI, ഇന്ന് നമുക്ക് മുഖ്യപ്രഭാഷണം തന്ന നമ്മളെല്ലാവരെയും 1 മണിക്കൂറോളം ശ്വാസമടക്കി ഇരുന്ന് ശ്രവിപ്പിച്ച നമ്മുടെ പ്രിയങ്കരനായ മാനനത്തിന്റെ പ്രിയപുത്രൻ ഡോക്ടർ CV ആനന്ദബോസ് IAS, എല്ലാവരെയും ഈ പരിപാടിയിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്ത എറണാകുളം സെന്റ് ജോസഫ് കോളേജ് ഓഫ് ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷന്റെ പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽ ഡോക്ടർ സിസ്റ്റർ ആലിസ് ജോസഫ്, വളരെ മനോഹരമായി ചീഫ് ഗസ്റ്റിനെ നമുക്ക് മുമ്പിൽ അവതരിപ്പിച്ച ഡോക്ടർ സിസ്റ്റർ ജോസഫൈൻ ജോസഫ്, ഈ പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പര ശ്രമിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട ഇതിന്റെ പാർട്ടിസിപ്പൻസ്, കഴിഞ്ഞ ഒരു മണിക്കൂർ ഈ പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പര കേട്ടപ്പോൾ എനിക്കുണ്ടായ ഒരു അനുഭവം ഞാൻ നിങ്ങളുമായി പങ്കുവെക്കുകയാണ്. കഴിഞ്ഞ 10 വർഷമായി ഈ മാന്നാനത്ത് ചാവറയച്ചൻ്റെ പാദസ്പർശമേറ്റ പാതകളിലൂടെ നടന്ന് ചാവറയച്ചനാൽ സ്ഥാപിതമായ ആശ്രമ ദേവാലയത്തിൽ ദിവ്യബലിയിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത്, ആരാധനയിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത്, പ്രാർത്ഥിച്ച്, ചാവറയച്ചനാൽ നിർമ്മിതമായ സംസ്കൃത സ്കൂളിന്റെ തിണ്ണയിൽ പോയിരുന്ന് ചാവറയച്ചന്റെ ആശ്രമത്തിനോട് ചേർന്ന് കിടക്കുന്ന ഈ സ്ഥാപനത്തിൽ 10 വർഷമായി ജീവിച്ച ഒരു വ്യക്തി എന്ന നിലയിൽ കഴിഞ്ഞ ഒരു മണിക്കൂർ ഈ പ്രഭാഷണം കേട്ടപ്പോൾ എനിക്ക് വലിയൊരു തിരിച്ചറിവാണ് ഉണ്ടായത്. ചാവറയച്ചനെ കുറിച്ചുള്ള എൻ്റെ അറിവ് വളരെ പരിമിതമാണെന്ന്. കാരണം അത്രയേറെ അറിയാനുള്ള ഒരു വ്യക്തിത്വമാണ് ചാവറയച്ചൻ എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ഇന്നിവിടെ പറഞ്ഞു നിർത്തിയത്. തലമുറയ്ക്ക് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു തലമുറയെ വെളിച്ചത്തിലൂടെ നയിച്ച, അനേകം തലമുറകൾക്ക് വെളിച്ചമേകിയ ഒരു പുണ്യാത്മാവായിട്ടാണ് ചാവറയച്ചനെ നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ സാധിക്കുന്നത്. ഒരു യുഗത്തിന്റെ വളക്കുമരം. നമ്മുടെ കീനോട്ട് അഡ്രസ് പറഞ്ഞത് ആനന്ദബോസ് സാറ് പറഞ്ഞു, കേരള ചരിത്രത്തെ ചലിപ്പിച്ച ഒരു ചരിത്ര പുരുഷനായി മാറേണ്ട ഒരു വ്യക്തിത്വമാണ് ചാവറയച്ചൻ. ചട്ടമ്പിസ്വാമികൾക്കും ശ്രീനാരായണ ഗുരുവിനും ഒക്കെ മുമ്പ് ജനിച്ച് അവരെക്കാളൊക്കെ മുമ്പ് സാമൂഹ്യ പരിവർത്തനം തുടങ്ങിയ വലിയൊരു യുഗപുരുഷൻ. ഒരുപക്ഷെ ഭാരത ചരിത്രത്തില് തന്നെ സാർ കൃത്യമായി പറഞ്ഞിരുന്നു, ഭാരത ചരിത്രത്തിൽ തന്നെ രാജാറാം മോഹൻ റായിക്കൊപ്പം രാമകൃഷ്ണ പരമഹംസന്റെ ഒക്കെ ഒപ്പം നമുക്ക് കാണാവുന്ന ഒരു ചരിത്ര പുരുഷനായി ചാവറയച്ചൻ വരേണ്ടതായിരുന്നു. ഒത്തിരി കേൾക്കാത്ത കഥകൾ, പറയാത്ത കഥകൾ ഇനിയുമുണ്ടെന്ന് നമുക്കറിയാം. ഈ കഥകളൊക്കെ ഒരിക്കൽ വരുമ്പോൾ തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും നമുക്കും പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കാം ഇവർക്കൊക്കെ ഒപ്പം, ഇവർക്കൊക്കെ മുൻപേ പകരം വെക്കാനാകാത്ത ഒരു ചരിത്ര പുരുഷനായി തന്നെ ചാവറയച്ചൻ വരുമെന്നുള്ള കാര്യം. ചാവറയച്ചനെ കുറിച്ച് ഒറ്റ വാക്കിൽ ഞാൻ പറയുന്നത് നിത്യപുരോഹിതനായ യേശു ക്രിസ്തുവിന്റെ അനുയോജ്യനായ അനുഗാമി എന്നാണ്. ഈ ചരിത്ര പുരുഷന്റെ പാവന സ്മരണയ്ക്ക് മുമ്പിൽ തല നമിച്ചുകൊണ്ട്, ശിരസ് നമിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ എന്റെ കർമ്മത്തിലേക്ക് കടക്കുകയാണ്. 2016 കോളേജിന്റെ ഡയമണ്ട് ജൂബിലി ആഘോഷത്തിലാണ് ചാവറയച്ചനെ കുറിച്ചുള്ള അറിവ് വരുന്ന തലമുറയ്ക്ക് ഈ കോളേജുകളുടെ സെന്റ് ജോസഫ് ട്രെയിനിങ് കോളേജ് മാന്നാനത്തിന്റെയും സെന്റ് ജോസഫ് കോളേജ് ഓഫ് ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ എറണാകുളത്തിലും വരുന്ന ടീച്ചർ ട്രെയിനീസിന് ചാവറയച്ചന്റെ അറിവ് പകർന്നു കൊടുക്കണമെന്നുള്ള ഒരു ആശയം, അത് സമൂഹത്തിലേക്കും പുതിയ തലമുറകളിലേക്കും എത്തിക്കുന്ന ഒരു ആശയം വരികയും അതിനോടനുബന്ധിച്ച് ചാവറ ലെക്ചർ സീരീസ് എന്ന പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പര ആരംഭിക്കുകയും ചെയ്തു. 5ാം വർഷം എത്തി നിൽക്കുകയാണ്. ഈ വർഷത്തെ ചാവറ ലെക്ചർ സീരീസ് നടത്താൻ എന്നെ ഏൽപ്പിച്ചപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ ഉടൻ തന്നെ ഇതിന്റെ കോർഡിനേറ്റർ, സഹ കോർഡിനേറ്ററായ സോയ സിസ്റ്ററിനെ വിളിച്ചു. സിസ്റ്റർ, ഇത്തവണ നമുക്ക് ലെക്ചർ സീരീസ് നടത്തണമല്ലോ, ആരെയാണ് നമുക്കതിന്റെ റിസോഴ്സ് പേഴ്സണായിട്ട് കണ്ടെത്തേണ്ടത്? ഞാനത് പറയുന്നതിന് മുമ്പ് തന്നെ സിസ്റ്റർ ഇങ്ങോട്ട് ഒരാളുടെ പേര് പറഞ്ഞു. ഒരേ ഒരാളുടെ പേരെ പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടു. അത് മറ്റാരുമല്ല, CV ആനന്ദബോസ് IAS എന്നെ കുറിച്ചാണ്. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു, ഞാൻ മറുപടിയും അപ്പൊ തന്നെ പറഞ്ഞു, നമുക്ക് വേറൊന്നും ചിന്തിക്കാനില്ല, സാറ് തന്നെയാണ് നമ്മുടെ ഈ വർഷത്തെ പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പര നയിക്കേണ്ടത്, നമുക്ക് വേണ്ടിയുള്ള ഒരു സംഭാഷണം നടത്തേണ്ടത്. അതിനുശേഷം പിന്നീട് വിളിച്ചപ്പോൾ സിസ്റ്റർ വീണ്ടും എനിക്കൊരു മറുപടി തന്നു. സാറ് തന്നെ വിഷയം നമ്മുടെ അടുത്ത് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്, ദ അൺടോൾഡ് സ്റ്റോറീസ് ഓഫ് സെയിന്റ് ചാവറ. വിശുദ്ധ ചാവറയച്ചനെ കുറിച്ച് ആരും കേൾക്കാത്ത, ആരും പറയാത്ത കഥകൾ. ഈ ഒരു മണിക്കൂർ സാറിനെ ശ്രമിച്ചപ്പോൾ എനിക്കത് തന്നെയാണ് തോന്നിയത്. വെല്ലുമ്മച്ചിയുടെ കയ്യിൽ നിന്ന് കിട്ടിയ വലിയ ഒരു അറിവ് ചാവറയച്ചനെ കുറിച്ച്, വളരെ ഹൃദയസ്പർശിയായിട്ടുള്ള അറിവുകളാണ്. അത് കേൾക്കുമ്പോൾ തന്നെ എനിക്ക് ഒത്തിരി സന്തോഷം തോന്നി. കാരണം എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു നമ്മുടെ ചെറുപ്പത്തിലൊക്കെ നമുക്ക് ഏറ്റവും വലിയ അറിവ് കിട്ടുന്നത് നമ്മുടെ ഗ്രാൻഡ് പേരൻസിന്റെ അടുത്ത് തന്നെയാണ്. ഒരിക്കലും മായാത്ത, മറക്കാത്ത അറിവുകൾ കിട്ടുന്നത്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെയാണ് ആനന്ദബോസ് സാർ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന പേഴ്സണാലിറ്റി വളർന്നു വന്നതും ഈ അറിവിന്റെയൊക്കെ പുറത്താണ്. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഇപ്പോഴും ആരും പറയാത്ത കഥകൾ ചാവറയച്ചനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയാൻ സാറിന് സാധിക്കുന്നത് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു. വീട്ടിലെ ചാവറ ചെയറിനെ കുറിച്ചും പിന്നീട് സാറ് ചാവറ ചെയറിന്റെ അധ്യക്ഷ സ്ഥാനം വഹിച്ച കാര്യങ്ങളും, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ സന്ധ്യാപ്രാർത്ഥന, വെല്ലുമിച്ച് പറഞ്ഞ ഭക്ഷണത്തിന് മുമ്പ് സന്ധ്യാപ്രാർത്ഥന, ഭക്ഷണം കഴിക്കുന്നതിന് തൊട്ടു മുമ്പുള്ള സന്ധ്യാപ്രാർത്ഥന, ഇതെല്ലാം ഒരിക്കലും മറക്കാനാവാത്ത, ഒരിക്കലും പറഞ്ഞു തീർക്കാനാവാത്ത ഒരു അറിവായിട്ട് തന്നെയാണ് എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായത്. സാറിന്റെ പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പര തുടക്കം തൊട്ട് ശ്രദ്ധിക്കുമ്പോൾ പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യങ്ങളൊന്നും ഒരിക്കലും തന്നെ കേൾക്കാത്ത കാര്യങ്ങൾ തന്നെയായിരുന്നു. ഒന്ന് രണ്ട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഞാൻ എടുത്തു പറയുന്നത്, സാറ് ചാവറയച്ചനെ ഒരു വിശ്വപൗരനായിട്ട് സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യം വിദ്യാഭ്യാസത്തിലൂടെ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന കൺസെപ്റ്റ് ആദ്യമായി അവതരിപ്പിച്ച ഒരു വ്യക്തിയായി ചിത്രീകരിച്ചത് വളരെ ഹൃദയസ്പർശിയായി തുടങ്ങി. ഫിഡൽ കാസ്ട്രോയ്ക്കും പോളോ ഫെയറിനും വ്ളാഡിമിർ ലെനിനും ഒക്കെ മുമ്പേ തന്നെ ഈ ആശയം സമൂഹത്തിലേക്ക് ഇട്ടുകൊടുത്ത ഒരു വിശ്വപൗരനായി ചാവറയച്ചനെ ചിത്രീകരിച്ചത് വളരെ മനോഹരമായി തോന്നി. ഒത്തിരി ഒത്തിരി അറിയപ്പെടാത്ത പറയാത്ത കഥകൾ സാറിലൂടെ ബാക്കി എല്ലാവർക്കും ശ്രമിക്കാൻ സാധിച്ചു. ഞങ്ങൾ എല്ലാവരും ആകാംക്ഷയോടെ കാത്തിരിക്കുകയാണ് അങ്ങയുടെ പുസ്തകത്തിനായി. കൂടുതൽ കേൾക്കാത്ത കഥകൾ കേൾക്കുവാനും അത് കേൾക്കാത്തവരിലേക്ക് എത്തിക്കുവാനുമുള്ള കടമ ഞങ്ങൾ ഏറ്റെടുക്കുകയാണ്. ഞങ്ങളുടെ കടമ തന്നെയാണ് ഇത്. ഈ ചാവറ ആശ്രമത്തോട് ചേർന്നിരിക്കുന്ന ഈ സ്ഥാപനത്തിൽ ജോലി ചെയ്യുന്ന അധ്യാപകരുടെയും വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളുടെയും ഓരോരുത്തരുടെയും കടമയാണ് ചാവറയച്ചൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന വിശുദ്ധന്റെ അറിയാത്തതും പറയാത്തതുമായ കഥകൾ ലോകത്തെ കേൾപ്പിക്കുക, മറ്റുള്ളവരിലേക്ക് എത്തിക്കുക എന്നുള്ളത്. എല്ലാവരുടെയും പേരിൽ ഈ രണ്ട് കോളേജിന്റെ മാനേജ്മെന്റ്, പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽമാർ, അധ്യാപകർ, വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾ, ഈ സംഭാഷണ പരമ്പരയിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത ഏവരുടെയും പേരിൽ ഉള്ള നന്ദി, സ്നേഹത്തിന്റെ നന്ദി സാറിനെ ഞാൻ അറിയിച്ചു കൊള്ളുകയാണ്. താങ്ക് യു സാർ, താങ്ക് യു വെരി മച്ച്. ഇന്ന് ഈ പരിപാടി ഇവിടെ ഉദ്ഘാടനം ചെയ്യാൻ എത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത് ഞങ്ങളെല്ലാം പ്രിയങ്കരനായ ഡോക്ടർ മാർട്ടിൻ മള്ളത്തച്ഛനാണ്. ഞങ്ങൾക്കെല്ലാം വലിയ സന്തോഷമുണ്ട് അച്ഛൻ ഈ പരിപാടി ഉദ്ഘാടനം ചെയ്തതിൽ, അഭിമാനവുമുണ്ട്. ഞങ്ങളുടെ അഭിമാനിയായ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഒരു പ്രസ്റ്റീജിയസ് അലുമിനിയാണ് അച്ഛൻ. കഴിഞ്ഞ 2 സെമിനാറിൽ അച്ഛൻ അസോസിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് സംസാരിച്ചിരുന്നു. തൊട്ടു മുമ്പ് നടന്ന കോവിഡിനുമായിട്ടുള്ള ഇന്റർനാഷണൽ പാനൽ ഡിസ്കഷനില് അച്ഛന്റെ അനുഭവം, ഒരു കോവിഡ് പേഷ്യന്റിന്റെ അനുഭവം പങ്കുവെച്ചത് വളരെ ഹൃദയസ്പർശിയായിരുന്നു. വളരെ ഭംഗിയായി അച്ഛന്റെ ഉദ്ഘാടന പ്രസംഗം ഇവിടെ അവതരിപ്പിച്ചു. അച്ഛൻ പറഞ്ഞ ഒരു വാചകം ഹൃദയസ്പർശിയായി തോന്നി. മോർ വി എക്സ്പ്ലോർ about him, more we get know about him. More we get know about him, more we get respect. കൂടുതൽ നമ്മൾ കണ്ടെത്തുമ്പോൾ കൂടുതൽ നമ്മൾ അറിയുന്നു. കൂടുതൽ അറിയുമ്പോൾ കൂടുതൽ നമുക്ക് റെസ്പെക്ട് ഉണ്ടാകുന്നു. ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് തന്ന ഒരു ഡയറക്ഷൻ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ഉപദേശമാണത് ഞങ്ങൾ ഗ്രഹിക്കുന്നു. കൂടുതൽ കണ്ടെത്തുക ചാവറയച്ചനെ കുറിച്ച്, കൂടുതൽ അറിയുക ചാവറയച്ചൻ, കൂടുതൽ സ്നേഹിക്കുക ചാവറയച്ചനെ, കൂടുതൽ ജനങ്ങളിലേക്ക് എത്തിക്കുക എന്നുള്ളത്. വളരെ നല്ലൊരു ഇനാഗുറൽ അഡ്രസ് തന്ന മാർട്ടിൻ മള്ളത്തച്ഛന് എല്ലാവരുടെയും പേരിലുള്ള നന്ദി അറിയിക്കുകയാണ്. അടുത്തതായി ഈ പരിപാടിയുടെ അധ്യക്ഷ സ്ഥാനം വഹിച്ച അധ്യക്ഷ പ്രസംഗം നടത്തിയത് മറ്റാരുമല്ല, ഞങ്ങളുടെ പ്രിയങ്കരനായ ഈ കോളേജിന്റെ അമരക്കാരൻ, ഞങ്ങളൊക്കെ രഹസ്യത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞ് ഞങ്ങളുടെ വിദ്യേട്ടനാണ്, സ്നേഹസമ്പന്നനായ ഞങ്ങളുടെ പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽ ഡോക്ടർ വർഗീസ് കെ ചെറിയാൻ സാറും നല്ല തിരക്കിലകപ്പെട്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഈ അടുത്ത കാലത്ത് യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി സിൻഡിക്കേറ്റിലെ മെമ്പറായി ഒത്തിരിയേറെ കർത്തവ്യങ്ങൾ ഏറ്റെടുത്ത് നടത്തുന്ന സാറ് കോളേജിന്റെ ചെറിയൊരു പ്രവർത്തനത്തിൽ പോലും കൃത്യമായ ശ്രദ്ധ പുലർത്തുന്നു. ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് കൃത്യമായി നിർദ്ദേശം തരുന്നു. ഓരോ കാര്യങ്ങളും എങ്ങനെ പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്യണം, എങ്ങനെ നടത്തണമെന്ന് കൃത്യമായിട്ടുള്ള നിർദ്ദേശങ്ങൾ തന്ന് ഞങ്ങളെ നയിക്കുന്ന വർഗീസ് സാറിന് ഈ പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പരയിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത എല്ലാവരുടെയും പേരിലുള്ള നന്ദി അറിയിക്കുന്നു. കേരളത്തിലെ തന്നെ പ്രമുഖമായ ഒരു കോളേജാണ് സെന്റ് ജോസഫ്സ് കോളേജ് ഓഫ് ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ ഫോർ വിമൻ എറണാകുളം. ചിട്ടയാർന്ന പ്രവർത്തനത്തിലൂടെ, നല്ല അക്കാഡമിക് മികവിലൂടെ, മറ്റു പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളിലൂടെ മുന്നോട്ട് പോകുന്ന ഈ കോളേജിനെ നയിക്കുന്നത് ഇന്ന് ഡോക്ടർ സിസ്റ്റർ ആലിസ് ജോസഫാണ്. ഈ പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പരയ്ക്ക് എല്ലാവരെയും സ്വാഗതം അർപ്പിച്ച സിസ്റ്റർ ചാവറയച്ചനെ കുറിച്ച് വളരെ കാതലായ ചില കാര്യങ്ങൾ പരാമർശിച്ചു കടന്നു പോവുകയുണ്ടായി. സിസ്റ്ററിന് എല്ലാവരുടെയും പേരിലുള്ള സ്നേഹത്തോടെയുള്ള നന്ദി അർപ്പിക്കുകയാണ്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഇന്നിവിടെ ആനന്ദബോസ് സാറിനെ എല്ലാവർക്കും പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തിയത് വളരെ മനോഹരമായി പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തി. ഇനി ഗൂഗിളിൽ ഒന്നും പോയി സെർച്ച് ചെയ്യേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല എന്ന് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു. അത്ര മനോഹരമായി തന്നെയാണ് ആനന്ദബോസ് സാറിനെ ഇവിടെ ജോസഫിൻ സിസ്റ്റർ ഞങ്ങളുടെ മുമ്പിൽ അവതരിപ്പിച്ചത്. എറണാകുളം സെന്റ് ജോസഫ്സ് കോളേജ് ഓഫ് ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ IQC കോർഡിനേറ്ററാണ് ഡോക്ടർ സിസ്റ്റർ ജോസഫൈൻ ജോസഫ്. സിസ്റ്ററിന് എല്ലാവിധ നന്ദിയും അർപ്പിക്കുന്നു. അടുത്തതായിട്ട് എൻ്റെ സഹ കോർഡിനേറ്ററായിട്ട് ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാമിൽ പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്നത് ഡോക്ടർ സിസ്റ്റർ സോയ. ഈ പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പരയ്ക്കിടയ്ക്ക് വളരെ മനോഹരമായി സെന്റ് ജോസഫ്സ് കോളേജ് ഓഫ് ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ്റെ കുട്ടികൾ ആലപിച്ച ഒരു ഗാനം കാണാൻ സാധിച്ചു. അത് വളരെ ഹൃദയസ്പർശിയായ ഗാനം. അത് രചിച്ചതും ഡയറക്റ്റ് ചെയ്തതും സിസ്റ്റർ സോയയാണെന്ന് അറിയുന്നതിൽ വളരെ സന്തോഷമുണ്ട്. ഞങ്ങളോടൊപ്പം നിന്ന് ഈ പരിപാടി കോർഡിനേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത സിസ്റ്ററിന്, നല്ലൊരു ഗാനം എഴുതി ചിട്ടപ്പെടുത്തി സംവിധാനം ചെയ്ത് കുട്ടികളെ കൊണ്ട് മനോഹരമായി പാടിപ്പിച്ച സിസ്റ്ററിന് എല്ലാവിധ നന്ദിയും ഈ സമയത്ത് ഞാൻ അർപ്പിക്കുന്നു. അത് പാടിയ കുട്ടികൾക്കും എല്ലാവിധ നന്ദിയും. ഇനി എൻ്റെ കോളേജിലേക്ക് കടന്നു വരുമ്പോൾ നന്ദി പറയേണ്ട ഒത്തിരിയേറെ പേരുണ്ട്. ഞങ്ങളുടെ കൂടെ 2 വൈദികരുണ്ട്, CMI വൈദികർ. ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട തോമസ് അച്ഛൻ, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട കുര്യാക്കോസ് അച്ഛൻ, ചാവറയച്ചൻ തുടങ്ങി വെച്ച CMI സഭയിലൂടെ ചാവറയച്ചന്റെ പിൻഗാമികളായി ഞങ്ങളെ നയിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന 2 വിശിഷ്ട വ്യക്തിത്വങ്ങൾ. ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് നന്മ മാത്രം കാണിച്ചു തന്ന് നേർവഴിയെ നയിക്കുന്ന അച്ഛൻ. ഈ 2 വൈദികരാണ് ഞങ്ങൾ ഇന്ന് ഇവിടെ ഇരിക്കാൻ തന്നെ ഞങ്ങളെ പ്രാപ്തരാക്കിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് നന്നായി അറിയാം. എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്ന കുര്യാക്കോസ് അച്ഛൻ തന്നെയാണ്, ക്ലറിക്കൽ അച്ഛന്റെ ഒരു ആശയമാണ് 2016 ഈ ചാവറ ലെക്ചർ സീരീസ് എന്ന് ഞാൻ ഓർക്കുന്നു. 2 വൈദികർക്കും, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ എറണാകുളം സെന്റ് ജോസഫ് കോളേജ് ഓഫ് ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷണൽ സിസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് എല്ലാവരെയും നേരിട്ടറിയാവുന്നതാണ് സിസ്റ്റർ സിജി. ഈ വൈദിക ശ്രേഷ്ഠരെയും സിസ്റ്റേഴ്സിനെയും ചാവറയച്ചന്റെ പാദപിന്തുടരാനുള്ള എല്ലാ അനുഗ്രഹവും അവർക്കുണ്ടാകട്ടെ. അവർക്ക് വേണ്ടിയുള്ള എല്ലാ നന്ദിയും ഈ സമയത്ത് അർപ്പിക്കുന്നു. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ അടുത്ത നന്ദി അർപ്പിക്കേണ്ടത് ഞങ്ങളുടെ കോളേജിലെ അധ്യാപകരാണ്. ഈ ഒരു പ്രോഗ്രാം കോർഡിനേറ്റർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞൊരു പേര് മാത്രമേ എനിക്കുള്ളൂ. ഇത് യഥാർത്ഥത്തിൽ കോർഡിനേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് ഈ കോളേജിന്റെയും സെന്റ് ജോസഫ്സ് കോളേജ് ഓഫ് ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷന്റെ IQC ടീം തന്നെയാണ്. ആദ്യമേ എനിക്കൊരു വാക്ക് നന്ദി പറയേണ്ടത് ഇതിന്റെ IQC കോർഡിനേറ്റർ ഡോക്ടർ റോണു തോമസ് ആണ്. ഇതിന്റെ പിറകിൽ നിന്ന് ഇതെല്ലാം സജ്ജീകരിച്ചു കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത് റോണു ടീച്ചറാണ്. ശരിക്കും ഇന്ന് ഈ കോളേജിനെ ചലിപ്പിക്കാൻ ഏറ്റവും മുൻപന്തിയിൽ നിന്ന് ശ്രമിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന റോണു ടീച്ചർ, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഈ പരിപാടി തുറക്കുന്നിട്ട് അവസാനം വരെ നിയന്ത്രിച്ച ഞങ്ങളുടെ പ്രിയങ്കരിയായ ലത ടീച്ചർ, വളരെ മനോഹരമായിട്ട് കൃത്യമായി കാര്യങ്ങൾ കോമ്പയർ ചെയ്ത് എല്ലാവരെയും നല്ല വാക്കിലൂടെ ക്ഷണിക്കുകയും നന്ദി പറയുകയും ഒക്കെ ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരുന്ന ലത ടീച്ചർ, അതുപോലെ എനിക്കെപ്പോഴും മോറൽ സപ്പോർട്ടായിട്ട് കൂടെ നിന്നിരുന്ന സുനിത ടീച്ചർ, ഇതിന്റെ മറ്റുള്ള സജ്ജീകരണങ്ങളൊക്കെ ചെയ്ത് സുനിത ടീച്ചർ, എപ്പോഴും ഒരു പിന്താങ്ങായി നിൽക്കുന്ന എല്ലാ സഹോദരി സഹപ്രവർത്തകര്, പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട ജിഷ ടീച്ചർ, പ്രവീണ ടീച്ചർ, ടെസി ടീച്ചർ, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ബെന്നി സാർ, ഇതിലൊക്കെ പറയാൻ വിട്ടുപോയ ഒരു വ്യക്തിയുടെ പേരും കൂടിയുണ്ട്. ഇതെല്ലാം ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ചെയ്തു തരുന്ന ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഓഫീസിലെ സന്തോഷ്, മറ്റു ഓഫീസ് പ്രവർത്തകർ, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ സെന്റ് ജോസഫ്സ് കോളേജ് ഓഫ് ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷനിലെ ഓരോ അധ്യാപകരും ഇതിനുവേണ്ടി ഒത്തിരിയേറെ കഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടെന്ന് എനിക്കറിയാം. ഓരോ അധ്യാപകർക്കും എടുത്തെടുത്ത് പേര് പറയുന്നില്ല, എല്ലാവർക്കും, ഞങ്ങളുടെ 2 കോളേജിലെ ഓരോ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾക്കും ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാം വളരെ മനോഹരമായി, ഏതാണ്ട് 190ഓളം പേര് ഇതിനകത്ത് പങ്കാളികളായിരുന്നു. വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾക്ക് പുറമെ ഒത്തിരി പാർട്ടിസിപ്പൻസ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. പുറത്തുനിന്ന് വന്ന പങ്കെടുത്ത വൈദികർ, സിസ്റ്റേഴ്സ്, എല്ലാ പങ്കെടുത്ത ഓരോ പാർട്ടിസിപ്പൻസിനും എല്ലാവർക്കും ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടി നന്ദി പറഞ്ഞു നിർത്തുന്നു. നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
Thank you, sir. With this, we have come to the end of the event. Let me once again thank all the dignitaries, the faculty and the students from both the colleges and all other participants who were with us for the event today. We most sincerely do hope and wish that we would all meet again in some fruitful venture in the future. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.